Hello everyone, I guess hopefully you're having a wonderful day, and we are back again with another PWCC Weekly Review where we go through the top 100 soccer auctions this week on the PWCC Weekly. As always, if you enjoy these weekly uploads, do make sure to leave a like. Appreciate it greatly, helps me, helps the channel. But with that said, let's go ahead and hop on over there. So sort of hinted at this last week, but a pretty special weekly, I would say, in totality. I'm going to make it even a little bit more special. I think that we'll see if I want to do this each and every week, but I would like to add 4 more, because technically we only look at the top 96, so I want to grab 1 from each of the previous pages. Basically, I went 2, 3, 4, 5. Wasn't going to look at the 6th page, but I grabbed 4 others to make it a full 100. I thought that of the next page down, that this is probably one of the standouts to me at least. Typically, they're going to be standouts if they seem like a decent price and if they're also a pretty notable card. I'm sure there's a lot of niche ones that I'm not too into the weeds on and, probably are also great buys, don't get me wrong, but I want to throw these in there. I thought the Di Stefano for $200 wasn't anything all too crazy. A little bit of staining on the back, but I mean, it's a 5. Looks really good on the front. Not a lot of chipping. Looks really clean. And there were some other ones, nearly graded the same of lesser players that were going for, $50, $100. I mean, Di Stefano should have a pretty good premium, at least in my mind. Thought this Thomas Muller 2014 Prism was a nice buy at $76. Didn't look at comps or anything, but at least to me, I kind of know what Neuer does, and, Neuer being a great goalkeeper. Thomas Muller also probably being one of the most notable players within the team. Germany winning year, of course, and red, basically a color match. Seemed like a pretty cool card. Pairing that up, we also have the PSA 8 rookie of his, the Foil 2009 for $31. One of my favorites of his rookie sticker choices, if not the favorite. I do believe that also the Panini foil background sort of deters fakes, so that's cool. And then finally, this one's $19, but an early Neymar that's in a PSA 9. Basically the cost of grading. Didn't seem like you could go wrong with any of those 4. So if you liked it, let me know. I'll probably do it going forward just because it is nice to be able to get some of the lower items in here. Starting off this week though, some items we see a decent bit of the matchups with 2014 Ronaldo Messi. We have a PSA 6, and I will say we'll see more examples like this, but the 6s seem to sell really strong, and the 7s and 8s really don't get too much of a premium, which shows me at least that the bottom portion of this Messi rookie market is still pretty thriving, I would say. This seemed like a pretty strong price, $222. Now it isn't, all that available in high grade for now, who knows? But to me, Fernando Torres, he has a lot of rookie options, and there's not too many collectors for him. Now there are some, and I get that this is only a pop 1 and 2, so I see why it does this. So I can see both sides of it. Above that, we have a Gazzetta for $222, pretty beaten up one, if we're being honest. 50 Cosmos Walter, PSA 8, super high grade, goes for $222. We have this Pele 58 Verline in a 2.5 that goes for $228. This was one I haven't really seen any of before. This was a Hector Scaroni in a PSA 1 that goes for $234. Don't entirely understand the release style, but I believe it was in some sort of magazine or book and could be removed from that one way or another. PSA 10 of a 98 Zidane going for $240. We have this Marcus Rashford PSA 10 Gold New Era that goes for $252. We saw a Neymar go last week for pretty cheap. This one goes for a reasonable price comparatively. Apparently the Neymar from last week was actually trimmed. I typically don't do enough looking at these borders, but I'll have to start, so that's notable. 2006 Lionel Messi, I don't think I've really ever seen this one, so this must be, obviously not that cared about, but also relatively niche in general. It goes for $252 and a PSA 1 of 5. Obviously, Match Attax is a pretty well-known brand, but I've never seen this card. 54 Thompson Rover Famous Footballers. This has a Duncan Edwards on it, and it is in the panel format, so it's uncut. Basically looking back at some other comps here. This does $252. There are no comps for a non-cut version, so you can only really look at the single shot and sort of take away what the premium on it was. This goes for $250. The last PSA 8 did $288, so that's almost a 3-grade difference, nearly the same price, so somewhat notable in that regard. Raymond Kopa sign card here goes for $264. I was, kind of partially interested in just what this goes for, because you don't really see a lot of autos as some of the older players come up on PWCC, so to see it was exciting, and seems like it got a decent price at $264. I will say not one of the best autos for the olden days. I mean, it's unique, don't get me wrong, but that could very much pass in today's sticker society. 2018 Kylian Mbappe goes for $264 in a PSA 10. The 64 Anglo-American Gum Pele, see this from time to time, but yeah, nice little caricature of Pele, and then some teachings beyond that. In this row, I don't have a whole lot to add. We have a 58 Fontaine here from a Biscuits producer, going for $264, a super high-grade Tingles, and a Baston right here from 1930. Cope Clips is a pretty big set in the early days of soccer. This is a Vivian Woodward that goes for $264 in a PSA 2. This type of stuff's always just cool for me to see because I hear about this type of stuff, but I'm not into the weeds of it. And honestly, English collecting just isn't really my style because I know so many people that already do it, and English collectors in general are already so fierce and ferocious in that space itself, so I just avoid it. But I do like looking in from the outside and seeing what they do, so to be able to see them on the auction block definitely helps. One of the Muller rookies here in a PSA 10 goes for $276. Above it, we have a couple Messies, so an SGC 9 from the 2006 set, or a PSA 7 from the 2004 Panini Sports Mega Cracks team set. We also have this 51 Godfrey Phillips here of John Charles in a PSA 1. I looked this one up because, again, not something you see all too often. Last one sold for $420, but I will say this one looks pretty good. I mean, obviously it's a bit off color, but this too kind of looks rough, so to me, seems like at least a decent price relative to the last. PSA 6, again, this is what I'm talking about with the PSA 6, is I know this is the blue card, which is a bit more desirable, I would say, by most people. I think it looks the best. The colors are nice, and it's also harder to grade, but it goes for $300 in a 6, which is a pretty decent price. For the grade, we have a 58 Gazenta PSA 5, $300. This Zara I looked up because we did see some of these before, and I wanted to see sort of what it compared to. So last one did $216 in a PSA 3. This one, not the same cert, different card, goes for $300. So, you know, a nice 40-50% increase. I will say a lot of the sales I looked up today was kind of impressed by how high they did relatively. We have a 2008 Panini Lewandowski in a PSA 9, goes for $324. I wanted to look this one up, but I already have so many things looked up that I didn't. It still feels like a respectable price. It still feels like a good spot. Given that, you know, it's a 9 grade. I'm sure it's not, you know, booming by any means. Feels fair, though. Here we have a 2003 Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks PSA 7 that goes for $324. Don't see these pop up all too often, really. And I do like the Mega Cracks lineage second year with the Manchester United kit and the badge, and the black kits just look so good. Really nice card there for $324. My win of the week, I was looking at a lot of things in this auction. It was pretty packed, but this is something I've been actually looking for quite a while. So looking at past comps here, we only have a few. There was a couple on eBay, one that probably sold twice, one time for $260, one time for $350, make of that what you will. There was also an authentic that sold on PWCC in 2022. Now, I do understand things have come back down a bit since then, so this selling for $420 and me buying at $324, it's not a huge dip, but I did think that this card being an authentic, not having a grade on it, really, and the auto also pretty beaten up, I would say. The auto on mine isn't great, but I do like the full auto. That's something that's notable when you look online for signatures of Gerd Muller. Most of them are the sort of Sharpie signature that you just saw there, kind of shortened. Even more so, say, down here. And yeah, on this one, you get the full one. I like that it was a PSA 2 grade. The back's pretty clean, and the auto being an 8, I don't feel the worst about it, considering it's an old auto with a pen. It feels a bit more genuine to me. But yeah, I had a Beckenbauer that, so I really wanted to pair it with a Muller at some point, and he has like a third as many graded as Beckenbauer, so a little bit harder to get. Pop 1 to 3, one higher, so feel pretty good about that. Beyond that, this was a pretty huge week for Grayling. This is 1926 Grayling here, so we have a Kata. This is a medium size. We have a Kata in a small size, and then we have an Alfred Schaefer in a PSA 2 here that goes for $348. So nearly the same price on all three of these. Difficulty is going to be that you don't really have comps on this. So I looked it up, sort of by highest price. Spoiler, these are some of the ones we're going to see later. So there's a Planinka here at a PSA 2 grade that goes for $810. Super, super nice looking item here. This is a super high number as well. The high numbers are more rare. And really nice looking one there that went for $810. Beneath that, we also have some others. We're going to have a Hoffman that went for $432 right here in a PSA 3, so decent grade there for sure. Hard to find these unstuck, especially of, you know, some of the more desirable players. And then we have the Schaefer, the two Katas here as well. And yeah, nothing really beyond that. You don't really get too many sales from recent history, at least at these prices. And these are all names that are very, very notable within the set, some of the biggest names in the set in terms of soccer. And you don't get to see them that often. So for me, as someone that's, again, looking on the outside on a lot of this type of stuff, it's just interesting to be able to have some sort of comparables to go off of in the future. We have the Pele, quote-unquote, rookie that you can light your matches with. We have a 53 Kubala and a PSA 9, so super high grade here. Pop 1 of 2 goes for $360, so a nice premium on that. Typically like a A 7 would go for maybe, I don't know, 30, 50 bucks, somewhere in there. So a 9 going for 360 is quite the premium. 2011, this is, gosh, I don't want to say first. It might be the first. I can't really remember at this point, but let's just say first Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi pairing. This goes for 372. Above that, we have a 58 Bremer, Vava, and Pele there celebrating inside the net. A 2003 Upper Deck Cristiano Ronaldo goes for 408. Seems like a pretty decent price for a base card Upper Deck. I know that people like these, and I like them too, but 408 for a base card is pretty hefty, I would say. David Beckham 96 Merlin, PSA 5. Again, I think there might be another David Beckham in here, but I feel like lately there's been a ton of David Beckham early items that I've just never seen before. So in terms of like pre-modern players that have had a lot more sort of come out, definitely on the radar. Now, it sort of blurs between first and second year, and sometimes you have more premium products, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Like, a Topps Premier Gold is going to be, more desirable in certain ways than, say, maybe a rookie card that might even be in a, sort of game set or something akin to that. I mean, there's definitely different layers within that. So 408 there is an interesting one. Not really going to have many comps to go off of, so I didn't even try. Grinch of PSA 8, again, not really going to have many comps to go off of. Goes for 408 here, and a PSA 8, so the 1970 set. Good to see sort of the older players that are having throwback stickers in this set get some love. Personally, as a Grinch guy, I appreciate this all the more. But yeah, pretty cool to see there. 58 Bremer Coffee here of presumably Pele. All of them that people care about have Pele. Goes for 408 and a PSA 2. This is a 1924 Uruguay team photo. Obviously a great team for the era, and obviously going to get a pretty decent price at that. Don't really have a whole lot to go off of on the back, but obviously the main attractor is going to be the front here. So nice and beautiful. Got some great poses, some great players as well. And yeah, there he is sneaking back there. Really cool to see these team photos as well. We saw one last week go, and another one goes this week. There are also some sort of lower price ones that I've seen as well. But yeah, that's pretty cool. 2014 Red, White, and Blue, or Red and Blue Wave. There we go. This goes for 420. Don't know any comps on this, so, just spitballing here. But seems like a decent price in the sense of, that is one thing that throws me off a little bit with 2014 Prism, and basically all of the Prisms is, if you're not collecting numbered, I just get confused by all the different types of variants that they have in regard to like the waves, the laser, the this, the that. And 2014 was relatively tame, so again, I can only imagine what we're doing now. 2016, Messi and Ronaldo, again, another dual pair here. This goes for 430 and a PSA 10. Again, going back to the lack of premium on 8s, this is a PSA 8 that goes for 430, so sort of showing the point there. PSA 9 second year Thierry Henry goes for 432. Felt like a decent price. I didn't look up comps, but just second year Thierry Henry. We'll see a rookie here in a second that I felt like was sort of low and sort of demonstrates, I think, how robust the Thierry Henry sector is at this point. Because the rookie isn't the only thing getting hyped now. It's kind of across the board, which is good. That's what you want to see. 78 Maradona PSA 2 feels like a decent price. I know, like, in authentic and 1 grades, these have gone for very cheap as of, well, probably more so last year, since a lot more were coming out, but this goes for 432, which is a decent price. We have a freed 42 Americana, so there will be another 42 Americana, but 40s Americana stuff is very, very hard to find. Don't see it all too often, so going to pull a high price, especially of a notable player. This is post-playing career, though, so that's, to be accounted for. Good price post-playing career, but you're not going to be able to find too much in regard to him anyway. So 26 Grayling Hoffman, the aforementioned when we were looking at the sales, goes for 432 there, pop 1 of 1 and then higher. Within the Grayling there are like different sizes. Now I don't know which numbers have which sizes. It's a really complex set. So you really have to dig into that, but that is something of note. Just because something's, a pop blank of blank doesn't mean there aren't more out there similar. So that's something to be aware of. PSA 8 444 here. Again, the PSA 8's not doing crazy. I do like the green a bit more, and they do grade harsher, so that's something of note. 8182 Rude Hullet PSA 9 goes for 480. Pop 1 of 1 and higher. Again, super high grade pre-modern right there. Close to vintage, depending on where you class that. 58 Gazette to 2.5 goes for 480. Feels pretty low, although people have talked this to death, and I do the same. I think that this is probably one of the worst Peles, and so I understand why it sort of has fallen and does what it does now, but still a decent price. I mean, 500 for a bad Pele, in my opinion, is still pretty good. 500 here for Kylian Mbappe PSA 9. The Kylian Mbappe, potentially. Did look this one up, maybe. No, I didn't. Okay. So I did look it up on my own, and basically this was about where the last ones have sold. A little bit down. Their low was like 400-ish, and then they bounced up to like 550, and this one goes for 5, so 20-30% bounce, it seems, on this sticker in particular. 60s Grinch from Bala Keep goes for 492, super high grade there, PSA 7. You know, if it's another week where there are less big hitters, maybe I eye that one a bit, because that's a super high grade. But yeah, PSA 1 in 2023 actually did 133, so, you know, kind of a discount on that one, it would seem. PSA 4 before that did 188. PSA 5 before that did 480. So most of these sales are going to be during the boom, so you don't really have a great gauge, I would say. But yeah, for the grade, I can definitely understand it. We have a 2014 Purple World Cup Stars Messi. I feel like I've seen 3 of these run in the last few months, so I didn't look it up. I think I've looked it up both times. We also did see a BGS one run, so we've seen this a lot, but 504 feels like an okay price relatively. This felt super strong. Now, you know, I'm not trying to disparage anyone. Collect what you like, pay what you like. But I know that you can get like 6s and 7s of these for super cheap. Now, within everything, there's always going to be a multiplier for the highest grade. I get that. But is this the type of item that people are paying big money for the highest grade? Like, I can understand it on things that stand out, but even within this set itself, there are so many different Maradona and Cruyff that you could go for. I can understand wanting to collect it, and I do have some of these myself. I like them a lot. But 504 seems super, super strong. It is highest grade, though, and, you know, certainly not easy, so I can understand it, at least how someone gets there. This is a Zellinger. This goes for 540 and a PSA 4, so this is a Hungarian player that it was pretty notable in terms of goal scoring. I don't know the rankings of Hungarian players in the, 40s, 50s, etc., so don't kill me, but very notable player, and not a sticker you see all too often. So this goes for 540, and only other sale we have to go off of is 200 from last year. So, at least relative to 200 for an authentic, feels like a pretty good price to get a PSA 4 at, nearly, or nearabouts 2.5 times the price. Typically, you'd see more of a multiplier, not really the case in this scenario, although with, only 2 auctions or 2 sales and however long Card Ladder's been looking, it's hard to, get fair and equal pricing. Each one's going to have a little bit of variance, which makes sense. We have a 57 Mazzola and a PSA 1 that goes for 660. So we'd seen this run before, at least this SGC one that also did 660. So I guess same exact price. Probably made the same note then when we looked it up that it is pretty crazy that in 2020 an altered version went for $21. So it's quite the move. I mean, typically I'd say PSA 1s probably get 2 to 3 times the price of an altered. Depends how desired the altered is or how rare it is, because sometimes if it's so rare, you take an altered. If it's not rare, you don't. But yeah, probably, 50, at most $100 sticker back in the 2020 days, and now it's $600-700 pretty consistently, so that's impressive. This BGS 3 looks pretty good. I didn't check out the back, but I'm just going to assume it's unstuck. You hate to assume with BGS, but I'll assume. Pretty off-center, but the registration and colors are super good. So pop 1 to 3, just 3 higher. Sounds pretty good if you just ignore the PSA pop. We have a 66 press photo Praha footballers of Franz Beckenbauer and a PSA 6 that goes for $720. Haven't really seen these go all too often, and it is a pretty recent grade, which is of note, at least to me. When you see something with a pop blank of blank, barely any graded higher, and it's a recent grade, I'm just a little bit more hesitant, generally speaking, but it looks nice. 59 Gianni Rivera here goes for $720. Wanted to look this up. I recently was sort of, looking at some of his available items and came to the conclusion that this was pretty notable. I mean, I've seen it in the past, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together and really understand the importance. But after doing so, we gave it a little bit of a peek this week. 2022, they went for, 1,080. And for this one to do $720, I hate when I do this. Yeah, not the same shirt, but I had to check. They looked actually pretty similar in terms of wear. But yeah, I mean, only down, 20-30% from peak pricing. There was a 2 actually recently that did $690, and that was middle of last year, so a little up from there, but not a bad sale. This is a weird Pele I've never seen before. It's circa 1960. I don't know how rare it is. I mean, considering I haven't seen it, sounds relatively rare. Maybe I'm entirely wrong. It's hard to know if, you're not into the weeds, if you're just not seeing it because people don't care, or if it's because it's actually rare. Pretty decent price, but I do wonder, when it says circa 1960 and then PWCC puts 1960 just blankly in the title. I wonder if it warps people's perception of what year it actually is, and they assume it's 1960 rather than understanding it's a plethora of years potentially. If anyone has info, would love to know. That goes for $750. PSA 8 96-97 Thierry Henry from the Mejoras Equipos de Europa set. This goes for $780, and again, pretty decent price. One of these went last week. This one goes for probably the same, if not higher. I remember the last one was similar. I thought that this was pretty strong. Again, we'll just see why here in a second. I'm sort of alluding to a later Thierry Henry that we'll see, but feels relatively high, and again, we'll get back to that. We have a Leaf Messi auto here, goes for $810. The Planinka that we talked about earlier in a PSA 2 goes for $810. Again, super, super nice looking. I wonder what the back looks like, just out of curiosity as well. Oh yeah, super nice back. So yeah, that's really, really cool. I'm assuming it's removed. There's a little something wrong with it, but yeah, that's a beauty. PSA 8 Monday Chromo goes for $870. Above that, we have a couple Deportivos. Now, this is going to be, something to remember for later. PSA 7 sub 1K. Just remember that. Above those, we have one of the highest dollar sales that we've seen from this Stabile, and a PSA 1 that goes for $930. Looked up prior sales, and yeah, I guess the only other one was a Luis Monti that went for $1,000 on a fixed price. And yeah, the only other one was for $360 that I can find. So pretty interesting to see. We don't see a lot of big names from that set go, so that's a notable, sale for the record books. This is a 1924 Eduardo Pai of Nasasi, along with, fellow teammates. This goes for $930, which at least, upon some research seems like a super strong price, but they don't pop up a lot, so I can also understand that. It is super, kind to the eye. It is a nice eye appeal sticker. I say sticker, certainly not a sticker, but I'm just so used to it. I went on Toto for this one, so did some deep diving, and yeah, in 2021 went, I think this is actually the same one because it sort of has that same mark in the top left. This went for 77 euros. So, I mean, to be doing 60 to, 80 euros, maybe $70, $90 pre-boom is still pretty impressive. So I can understand why it's gone up a good bit. When I go through more comps, you don't really see anything. And even back in the Wayback Machine in 2018, 2017, there are still relatively random ones going for, 20, 30 euros. So yeah, not one you see a lot, and definitely one that gets a good price. Again, sort of a theme of this week. Seems like a lot of good prices, and we'll see that as we continue. This one is sort of what I'm saying in terms of maybe not a good price for this sticker, but at least comparatively to other Thierry Henrys, it feels like it's at a discount. At one point in time, this was like the one thing everyone cared about, and I feel like that has changed, and, rightfully so. People are going to care about it a lot and then sort of move on to other things, but like, when this is doing nearly the same price as a PSA 8 of this rookie, and this isn't even the most rare version of this rookie. There's a Russian version as well. Like, I would default over here. I know it's a grade lower, but personally, $200, $300 difference. I guess it's 300, but still. I think this is so much more iconic, and personally, I think that that's a deal, at least relative to the other Thierry Henrys we saw. Again, earlier, I know that this is a super high grade. It's a 9, whatever it was, but yeah, it's right here. Pop one of 9, just one higher. I get it, but at least to me, again, the PSA 7 rookie seems a lot more appealing. Now, I will say I am not a Thierry Henry guy, so if I'm buying an Henry, I'm buying probably one of them, and this would be the one. But if I'm an Henry guy, you probably buy a lot of them, and so I can understand that as well. 76 Saeta here of Zico goes for $1,080. This one sort of struck my eye because, well, the colors are nice, but you also don't see it too often. So, going on over here, only other sale happened to be in a PSA 4 as well, which makes this easy, was $1,200. So $150 dip over, sort of boom to now. Not much of a dip. Seems to held pretty strong, and not a rookie Zico, but an early Zico that's, as you can tell, hard to get. Then we have a couple Maradonas here. So we have a 78 Crack, which in a PSA 3 goes for $1,200. I was looking up comps earlier in the week because, I wanted to see where these landed. I thought maybe with so many going that some would end pretty low. PSA 2s for this were selling $500, $700. So, a 3 going for $1,200 feels like a pretty fair price, especially as off-center as it is. Now, again, it looks nice, don't get me wrong. Colors are good. Registration seems pretty solid, so I'll give it that. This PSA 7 Calciatore goes for $1,140. I'd be interested, which one would you rather have, a PSA 3 of the 78 crack, or PSA 7 Calcitori. PSA 7, if we look at the graph, they have dropped a little bit over the last year, 22%, so 1470 to 1140. A little bit of a dip, but generally, relatively flat. Last couple sales have been a little down, but nothing too drastic over the last year. And again, these are decent pop. I mean, 42 in soccer, we talk about being kind of high pop, but that's with the assumption it will continue to move up. So that does have to be baked in. We have a 77 crack disc that goes for 1,200 in a 1. Last comps I had in my head for a 1 were like 1,500, maybe 2K. So this is low, but it's a really bad looking disc. So I sort of understand why it went a bit lower. Another decent sale here on this 1.5 Titulares. We saw one go recently. That one was actually pretty strong. I think it was like 15, maybe 1,700. This one a bit lower. I mean, the 15, 1,700 on the other one seemed pretty strong anyway. So to get another strong sale so quick after, it seems decent. Leonidas here from 42 in an authentic evidence of trimming goes for $13.50. Tried to look up any comps of this year, any Americana stuff, couldn't find anything. So it's what people are willing to pay, and that's a pretty mighty fine price, but also, great player, rare issue, understand all that. Treble Blue, Kylian Mbappe goes for $1,400. Wanted to look this one up. Last one did, what was that? PSA 9 did $1,900, so down a little bit from there, although, of course, BGS gets a discount, so naturally, you sort of expect it to be around this price. PSA 8 did $1,000, so, it's between a PSA 8, PSA 9. We have a record PSA 7 Pele, go for $1,500. Feels like a pretty strong price, I would say, considering some of the other records that you see sell around. We have a PSA 10 Mundi Chromo Iniesta that goes for $1,800. I was pretty struck by that. I thought that was super high, but apparently it's not terrible. I guess last one did $1,100 in 2023, and this one does $1,800, so a pretty massive sale. Now, of course, I guess we got to see if that gets paid out, see how it plays out, all that stuff. But yeah, going back, I guess pre-boom, these were $200. As we went into the boom, they went up to $800, and all-time high was $4,000. So if this ends up getting paid, $2,000 is a pretty good price, and I would say, a decent sign of life over here, although we haven't seen a PSA 10 really run all that often. I mean, there have been 2 in the last 2 years, so if we're talking about, grading scarcity, that is it. Then we have an even bigger 78 crack, which is pretty hard to find. We'll actually even have a bigger one here in a second, which is crazy to think about. This 4 goes for $2K, which I guess relative to the 3, you probably like this price a decent bit, $600 more, but you get a grade higher and an eye peel sticker, and in my opinion, it is a good bit looking better, I would say. $1,900 feels like a pretty good price if you're the buyer, seller, feels fair. This is also one that pre-boom was doing pretty good pricing. I accidentally clicked on it, didn't mean to, but in like ones, they were doing $200 pre-boom. So, I mean, a 4 at $1,900 now with the grading premium a lot of people have, it doesn't feel crazy. This was actually also a pretty good sale. $2,100 for this Baggio. Wanted to look this one up. And last sale was $1,700. Sale before that was $1,000, $1,300, $1,100. So this is the highest sale since 2022, which is, again, interesting to see. Feels like we've seen that a lot this week. You see PSA 9 sell of this a decent bit, which was sort of surprising to me. I mean, 15 PSA 9s. I don't even think there's a PSA 10. There might be one out there. Okay, well, there's been one sale in 2021 for 13.7K. So it'd be interesting what that would go for now. I mean, honestly, feels like it would still get a pretty good price, you would think, if 9s are going for 2K, but it's always that interesting factor of once it comes up for auction, does it actually get those high bidders? And, I would assume a sticker like that would, but with the things we see in stickers, you also don't know. So, but 85, I guess a bit earlier, Italy's still printing a good bit, but 2002 Ronaldo PSA 8 goes for $22.50. Decent price. I mean, last week we saw one go for $17.50, so that's almost $500 higher. I thought this one looked a bit better in terms of centering, but it's still noticeably off, so it's not a crazy difference. Again, in terms of comparing, I thought this was a fun comparable row in terms of what you'd want. For me, it would be pretty easy, I would say. I'd decide between these two, at least. That's what I could say. I'd definitely cross out the Baggio, but that's me. Again, here, I'd probably take the 78 crack, but I wouldn't feel great about missing out on the Ronaldo. I know Ronaldo's gotten a lot of hate and whatnot, but like this type of comparison to me, I mean, what would you rather have, Ronaldo or Baggio? I mean, gosh, I get it, bit higher pop, but come on. 58 record Pele and a PSA 8 goes for $2,400. Again, kind of why I said the 7 was a decent price, because an 8 only goes for a little bit higher, and this has Garrincha. Some people like that, some don't, I guess, but I'd rather have Garrincha than not. 58 Aquarella in a 3 goes for $2,400. Again, about what we see. 1s and 2s are in the $1,000 range. 3s get you into the 2 to 3. Mega Cracks PSA 6 goes for $25.20 here, and again, feels like about the prices you see. This 8.5 doesn't do a crazy number higher at $38.40. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's 50% higher, but for 2.5 grades, I guess that's again sort of the state of BGS. PSA 10 Kylian Mbappe goes for nearly $3K, which to me feels like a decent price. I do think that these PSA 10s get a good premium. Like the 9's going for $500, and then the 10's going to do like almost $3K. That's a 6X. You don't really see that too much on modern stickers. So it'll be interesting to see if that holds and becomes the norm. Like say with the Foosball Hollands, there's not as big of a difference. Despite Pops being somewhat similar, at least in terms of ratios. 61 Benassi Pele here of the Bala Sakib goes for $4,080 in a PSA 4. This was a super strong sale as well, at least looking back. We have a PSA 2 on Golden that did $1,000. I know a premium is to be had when you go from a 2 to a 4, but a 4X is pretty solid. Don't get me wrong. These colors are really nice, I will say. I was sort of struck by that. Like these aren't great colors. Those are very nice colors. So I can understand the color thing. It has an eye appeal sticker. People either care or don't care, but this was also a decent comparable, I thought. I mean, a Pele auto and a 2.5. Now I know it's not the greatest auto, don't get me wrong, but just something to think about. But yeah, one of the highest sales, if not the highest. So there was a $9,000 sale for a PSA 6. So again, comparing to that in 2022, which is kind of the boom, I mean, seems like, it's still nearly the same in terms of pricing, which is impressive. Pretty crazy week, because this could be the top of a week. This could be the top of a week, and this certainly should be the top of a week, but this week it is not. So we have quite a few bangers. We have a Francesa 61 Eusebio, kind of the most notable early Eusebio to me in the sense that you see it a little bit. I mean, early Eusebios you don't see much at all, so you take what you can get. You see this a decent bit, and it always stands out because it's just the tall boy. I guess it's regular size, but the shape is of a tall boy style. You also have the sort of lengthy, iconic Eusebio. The colors are amazing. The border, the badge, it's beautiful all around. Goes for $4,400, which is actually kind of a low sale. Maybe not. I guess. Last PSA 1 went for 8.8K. Although I guess, all PSA 1s aren't created equal. I think that's important to note. Because this PSA 1 goes for $5,100. Probably a bit worse. We're not getting a full picture. Yeah, definitely a bit worse in terms of the crackling, the face, the edges. This PSA 1 looked really good. That's an example of why it's important to look into the pictures and the cards themselves or stickers themselves. Last authentic, badly beaten up one went for $1,200. So, I guess if you're just trying to get it, that $1,200 seems like a deal compared to a $4,400 of a much nicer looking copy. Pre-boom all the way back in the day. I guess it was June of 2020, but that's definitely pre-boom for vintage. A 3.5 went for $2,000. So haven't really seen anything of that caliber go since. So we haven't tested that, but yeah, it seems like really high prices across the board for these, and the $4,400 makes more sense in context now. I thought that was like a 50% off sale, but that other one was just super, super nice looking. Speaking of super nice looking, we have a PSA 6 here of the 76 Crack. So again, you don't see these very often at all. Pop one of 7.5 higher of one of Maradona's best items. Goes for $6,300, so it definitely gets a premium. 4 was at like $2K, so from a 4 to a 6 to go up 3X, a little bit more. Makes sense, I guess, in my head. We have seen some 7s of these go recently. Also interesting, again, that the 78 Cracks seem to hold decent prices despite like 5 of them going in the same week and some super high grades at that. So I thought that was reassuring. I think that's been a pretty reassuring thing in general. I've seen a lot of the same things go week after week, or a lot sort of testing each other in the same week, and they seem to hold on pretty well, which is, something we weren't seeing before, right? So then we have a Mia Hamm PSA 10 SI for kids. These always get a pretty decent price. I remember back in the day, the first one of one going for a crazy amount, but they still held up, decently well. $8,400 for that one. PSA 5 Pele Aquarella here, super, super high grade, goes for $8,700. We don't have a pop number there, but I can guarantee you that's super high grade. Colors look really nice, gets an eye appeal sticker as well, $8,700. Look that one up, and the last comps were $9,800, $9,600, $8,700, 6K back in the day for this one in a ginormous slab. Interesting to see that. That definitely seems like a steal, at least now. Yeah, seems like they're holding up decently well, I guess, depending on what you compare to. I mean, 2023, of course, Pele was a bit down at this point, but 10,000 back then, nearly 10,000 now, so not too much going on there. Then we have this PSA 8 Gold Ronaldo. This one, to me, was sort of the standout of the auction block, I thought. I mean, there were a lot of good ones, don't get me wrong. Like a PSA 6 of this crack is amazing. If you're a women's collector, I'm sure that's probably great as well. The Aquarellas don't impress me as much. Honestly, this Deportivo super high grade, but again, doesn't impress me as much. This PSA 10 Prism, at least the way people talk of gold out of 10, and especially gold prisms in modern soccer, I thought that this was a big one. And 10K, don't get me wrong, that's no joke in soccer especially. But we will see, at least when we go back and compare it comps, not great. So last PSA 10, this is basically the only one I could find. I had to search through all of these. Like, I typed in 2018 Prism Gold. I got 35 results. Some of them are duals, some of them are inserts, some of them are this, that, and the other. Some of them are optic. They're just in here. It was so terrible to try to figure out. But we did find one. And this 8.5, what is it, 2022, went for 63K. Now, again, you know, if you weren't around, there was a time where gold, anything, sort of had a mania around it. But again, this is sort of the danger of narratives, I feel like. The end of 2022 and going into 2023 seem to have been sort of the lowest the hobby's been at, and might be at for a while, who knows. But no matter the case, this was bought at a relative low in terms of the hobby at large. And now it's down, you know, 85% on this out of 10. And I think that this is important because I think a lot of other people bought super low pop stuff based on the type of comps that you saw back here for these cards, right? When we're talking Ronaldo out of 10 Prism Golds, that's on a super short list of hobby cards, right? For soccer in terms of the modern day, that is a short list. And for that card to only do 10K, and I know saying only do 10K sounds crazy, but in terms of modern soccer, this is a low price. It's just gotta be. Because there are tons of people I see all the time trying to sell, you know, cards that are nowhere near comparable to this card for thousands. And you can't sell you shouldn't be able to sell cards that are nowhere near comparable to this card for thousands when this only goes for 10K. Of course, people still do it, and I understand there's ranges to everything. There's not a ton of people in soccer that have 10K to throw out there on other things, hence why this does 10K. If people had tens of thousands sitting around, then they'd throw them out on something like this. But I think that's something to be noted, because I think there's tons of people buying this same type of card, but for other players, for decent prices. And you know, I warn against that a little bit. I know I'm sort of a broken record in that regard, but this is sort of a sale that stuck out to me and sort of pointed towards why I have those feelings and maybe confirm them a little bit more. I think 10K is probably a steal. If you're a Ronaldo guy, you bought this card, I think you probably did great. Again, I know if we compared back to what this sold for in 2018, it was probably super low price, but in terms of what means something in the hobby, Prism Gold out of 10 is basically almost as high as you can get in terms of what the average person would put as a grail within their PC. So yeah, super high grade, super cool card, and gets 10.5K. And then doubling that on the dot is this Ronaldo R9 PSA 9. Just crazy. I mean, we've seen so many of these go, and I'm really shocked that a 9 does 21K because we've seen so many of these go recently. An 8.5 did 10,000, and that 8.5 seemed like a strong sale to me because you'd see 7s. We saw 2 7s earlier that did under 1,000. They did like 700. So why is an 8.5 doing 10K when a 7's doing 700? I mean, almost a 15x multiplier just off of a grade and a half difference. And this isn't the only Ronaldo sticker. Like, I could understand if this was the iconic Ronaldo, the R9 people want. I could see why it gets a super crazy premium. But in terms of the casual hobbyist, I don't think many people really even have this Ronaldo on their radar. So to me, it's just sort of, it's crazy. I don't really get it. These have been getting graded in high grade for quite a while, and there's just been more and more coming out. There's a lot of questions as to how that's happening. If someone just found a huge batch of it, if someone cracked the code on cutting them, but even within cutting them, typically there's still going to be things off with them. I mean, you can't preserve this type of stuff. I don't know the exact release style, but I know that this is almost sort of a magazine type of release, or it's released with other players. It's sort of a much bigger piece itself, so that's super hard to keep in high grade, especially when you consider you got to hand cut it. There's just a lot going into it. So a 9 doing 21 grand, it seemed like a super high sale and super impressive to me. But yeah, this whole week was super impressive, I thought. I mean, super amazing stickers, amazing cards across the board, and pretty good prices paid on a lot of it. I thought, some of this stuff was going to sort of go through the cracks, and didn't really seem like that was the case. So, impressed all around, and excited that we got through this. So, really fun weekly. Hopefully enjoyed. We do have a preview of the next weekly, of course, to sort of see what's going down up there. So, a little bit of a lesser week. There are some, top dogs. So this is the Messy Eminence auto, depending on how you feel about these autos. To me, that doesn't look anything like a Messy auto, but, to each their own. I think this is trying to sell for like the third or fourth time, so that's something of note. We have the green border Pele here, going for a decent penny. Blue Kylian Mbappe. We have a 57 Garrincha, a BGS 9 Messi. PSA 10 Lewandowski, the portrait that you don't see all too often, a 1907 Taddy Bloomer, a PSA 6 Super High Grade Eusebio blue name, a red and blue back Pele, and surely lots of other goodies scattered between. So, hopefully enjoyed. If you did, again, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this as soon as we go live, make sure to subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below in a comment. With that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.